Hey guys, this is my AMX 1375 review. It's a tier 7 scout tank, so it sees tier 8 matchmaking, which is up to tier 10. It's a fairly good tank, 61 kilometers an hour, and has a 6 round autoloader which has 144 pen with its AP and 202 with its APCR. I carry 6 AP and 30 APCR because I'm a dirty gold spammer, and because the extra 60 pen on the APCR is so much better at higher tier games than having the standard 144 pen with AP. Plus, the increased shell speed at the APCR is so much nicer for shooting those long distance targets. So, I run binocs, optics, and vents because the gun laying drive is only useful if you're standing still, and I prefer to play this as more of an active / assassin than as a passive scout. I will passive at the beginning of maps, simply because I like to see how the other team is deploying rather than rush in, get the spots, get shot a couple times, and take damage needlessly without really gaining any important information from the enemy team. Some might argue that this is the wrong way to play this tank, but I prefer playing it more actively at the end and more passively at the beginning. It's way more dangerous if you're at full health at the end of the game than it is if you're on 1 or 2 shots, due to that 6 round autoloader, which can deal out a fair bit of damage, 6 times 135 for those who want to do the math. So over here I'm taking shots where I can and waiting for that 4 tank situation in the middle to develop a bit more before I push in and do some damage. Don't really want to take any early damage as this game's only really begun. So take a little bit, wait a couple seconds, see what's happening, and then after the fury has moved off, I will go in and do some damage. Simply because they are distracted by the one line push that we have going, the VK and the Panther are distracting 3 guys in the middle. And this allows me to drive up on this hill, get down behind them, clip out both of the Cromwells, take the hit from the VK, but I still kill both of the Cromwells, which I think is a fair trade. 246 damage received for 2 Cromwell kills is not a bad trade. I will take that 9 times out of 10, just because it's 2 fairly rapid, fast-firing, quick medium tanks that can do a whole bunch of damage if left unchecked. So take my reload, see if I can get any shots on that T-71 to kill him, then push into this 3002D. The APCR just goes right through his front. I don't have to aim at all. Just makes it so much easier. Despite the fact some may argue that gold spamming is not the way to play, I think it makes this tank a lot more bearable at those higher tier matches. And constantly bouncing 3-4 shots in a clip, doing 200 damage, taking 600 in return, and having a really game. So the 15.3 second drum reload is really nice for 6 shots. It allows you to take those drum reloads rather soon to keep your clip full, which is when this tank is most dangerous. Ram the Roomba there because I can and because it's rather unexpected. You don't expect a light tank to ram you, especially if you're in a Roomba. It's rather unheard of. Flip out the Roomba, don't have any shots left to finish off the T-71 and start to go after this T-25-2, hoping that I'll be reloaded at the end to get some more damage off. Unfortunately I'm not, and the game ends with me taking that hit from the T-25-2 without doing any damage to him in return. Okay, this is a game on Muravanka, I think, new Muravanka 9.3, I think. This is a 9.3 replay. I like to go over the 1-2 line to begin with if I'm on a fast medium, fast light tank, just to get those early spots off the 1-2 line and hopefully keep the enemy team away from the hold down locations at the D1 area. Unfortunately, I spot that Indian Panzer, and I really don't want to push into him as he is a really good player, and rushing into him would not be a good life decision at this point. So I am forced to hide in the back, see what I can see if I can get any early shots into the forest, and not take any damage from pushing into that Indian Panzer. I don't like playing passive, so I decided to go active, and I decided to help out our outnumbered guys in the forest by first crashing into that post. It's coming up soon, eventually, and then get round behind the enemy, which are in a very strong position up in the north, do as much damage as I can to them, force them to turn their attention towards me and not towards the other team, which is essentially more important at this point. If they die, I can't carry this game, so I need them alive to do the damage that needs to happen. Shoot the T-49, bounce off the limbo, take a couple hits, but that's okay because I'm distracting them. I'm not essentially attempting to do damage here, I'm just trying to distract them from shooting our guys and allow them to do the shots that they need to do without taking return fire. Because right now we're losing 4-1, and the forest push is rather outnumbered at this point. I go for the reload, get unspotted, and await another opportunity to essentially drive in, fire off a clip, and distract them. T-49 here is stock. He's not really a big threat. His 90mm gun is not very good, some will argue, with the AP. And it's not a threat to me, but clip him out anyways because he is a fast tank and can do a whole bunch of damage if he gets around the back of the Super Pershings. I still have the same plan, distract the Knaven and the Type 59 from shooting our guys in the back. This tank doesn't have very great gun depression or gun elevation, so it is difficult to get these hill shots off. You have to drive essentially right up to the guy, shoot him in the back, and see, no gun elevation, couldn't shoot that Type 59. I had to back all the way up, which leads to me getting hit in the side by that Jagdpanther 2. I see the Jagdpanther 2, go for the reload, and decide to come up to him from a different angle than the one he has me spotted at. But unfortunately that doesn't plan out as well as it could have done for me, simply because I am not aggressive enough at the beginning. I am more hesitant on the top of this hill that I'm about to crest. I shouldn't have waited for as long as I did at the top. Like there, I should have just charged directly down into him. Shouldn't have hesitated and looked for him to move a bit. And right here, I play it very badly. I decide to back up into the front of Panther 2, and which causes me to die. Not a very good decision. He traverses very well for a TD. So this is a Japan map? I don't know what it's called. It's called Japan. Castle. Something. Who knows? And I decided to go for that early spots up on the middle ridge because this is a fast tank and it has really good view range with optics. It's 390 plus 39, which is 10% from the optics, so 439 if I'm doing my math correctly. It's a fairly good position. It allows you to get spots into the guys that are going into the castle town area and allow the people in the town to see how many tanks and what tanks they're going to be shooting at and engaging. However, if artillery is aiming over this area, it is not very safe, as they can just lob shells completely over that ridge and hit you despite the fact you're hidden behind it. Didn't spot too many too many tanks going into the city, which is okay, but it just means that the 3 people up in the mountain areas are going to be a little bit outnumbered when it comes to actually engaging the other team. That position there is fairly decent if you have a light tank or a medium tank. You can drive up onto it and get some shots down into the engine decks, the people which are hiding behind that hill right there. It does leave you a little bit exposed, so you will take fire if they do spot you, which they inevitably will because there's no cover. But it allows you to get shots into the sides and rear of enemies when they're not expecting it. Now this Ferdinand is stops in the water for no apparent reason, and I can just aim and get shots into the side of him. I take the time to aim simply because the Type and the T-34 are engaging all the tanks we have in city, and they aren't posing much of a threat to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken those shots. Type 61 has a very fast reload, and 390 Alpha does do a lot of damage. So, see this T-34 somehow get a shot into his engine deck from there, and then get shot in the side by the Type 61, who does take advantage of the fact that I am hiding out in the middle of nowhere and get a side shot on me. However, I still feel that it's a decent attempt to try and get some more damage off onto this Type 61 by doing the same thing, and luckily I only get tracked by him. Only get tracked. I should have taken at least 400 damage there. Get a little bit too greedy. Should not have poked out. Should have just hid back, waited a couple more seconds, and then maybe driven all the way across the hill as opposed to hide up in the open where that Type 61 could see me. So we have essentially won the town and are pushing into their base, which means that I am free to go wherever I want essentially. But I decided to come up here and help out this T-54 against the tier 10 tanks. Doesn't climb hills very well occasionally. The 202 APCR pen just allows you to tear this Object 140 apart. I do take the hit, but I feel that clipping out this guy was the correct decision. That it was definitely a better play than waiting for that T-54 to take another shot. Was to take the hit, clip the guy out, and kill a good player and a tier 10 tank. So right here I play it bad. I should have gone the other way, but I get greedy and I see the Leopard and the Death Star who just fired, and I want to get more damage, so I decide to push all the way up into the Death Star and see if I can clip him out too, which ultimately goes very wrong for me as I don't spot that Batchat to my left, who spots me, and that's pretty much game for me. Bounce off of him somehow. Kills me. So, overall, I think this tank is decent. It's not bad. It's fast, it's fairly maneuverable, it's got good camo. I would recommend 6 Sense camo for the first skill, and then camo, you can either go for gun handling, which, yeah, gun handling, you should go for a snapshot and smooth ride, as this tank is, I think, more of an active scout than a passive scout. Plus, it's always beneficial to have gun handling perks. And yeah, that's essentially it. It's a good tank. Doesn't carry as much ammo as you really want, so your overall damage is rather low on this tank. But it does do well in tier 8 games. It does okay in tier 9 games, and it can make an effect on tier 10 games if you give the tier 10 tanks the correct spots and annoy the other tanks on the enemy team enough so your team doesn't take as much damage as the enemy team does. It's alright. It's a good way to learn the French light tank line, much more than the AMX 12T, which was rather slow and useless in my opinion. And it's a good way to train up your crews for the AMX 1390, which is essentially taking all the things that you learn from the AMX 1375 and this time with more damage. Yeah. So, this was my first tank review on the AMX 1375. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you later.